Hi everyone, my name is Layla. I am going to be reading off of my notes, so if it looks like I'm looking this way, I'm reading off of my notes. The book that I chose for section 2 is called The Napping House. It is by Audrey Wood with illustrations by Dawn Wood. This is a very simple, fun story. Everyone in the house is sleeping, as you can see. And everyone is in the same room in the house. The entire story takes place in one room in the house. And one by one, characters in the story begin to lazily walk on over to the cozy bed and pile up on top of each other. And then once the last character, which is a flea, gets to the top of the pile, it bites the mouse, the character that it climbs up on top of. And then one by one, each character startles the next awake, and then in the end everyone is awake and no one else is sleeping, and it's no longer the napping house. The visuals in this book are extremely appealing in my opinion. I think they're very captivating. It looks like this the entire time. I think it's very interesting because from page 3, all of the characters are already present in the room. You just don't know that they're going to be in the story because it builds up one by one. And then by the very middle of the story, when all of the characters are there, all of them are piled up on top of each other on the bed, and it's very subtle that the characters all end up on top of each other on the bed. And it's perfect for teaching kids about like visual literacy and predictive illustrations, and if you want to call it foreshadowing, you could say foreshadowing. But the illustrations I think are very, very important to the story. The genre for this book is fiction, children's literature. If you'd consider bedtime stories a genre, then you could call it that, but children's fiction. And the quote that I wanted to use is in the very middle of the book. And it's when every character is on the bed, and it lists every single character. It says, "Can it be a wakeful flea on a slumbering mouse, on a snoozing cat, on a dozing dog, on a dreaming child, on a snoring granny, on a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping." And that is kind of the climax of the book, or just before the climax, I guess you can say. But this is the page where all of the characters have been introduced, everyone is there, all on top of each other, and at this point in the story, kids will have caught on to the fact that it's very repetitive. Each page is the same, it just adds on a new character. And so I think this is arguably the most important page in the story. I think the strengths of this book are, one of them is that it's very repetitive. Children can catch on to the sequence, to the repetitiveness. It also, I think the illustrations are also a big strength, teaching kids about visual literacy, teaching kids about it's more than just words on the page that make the story. And I also think it has really strong vocabulary, like slumbering mouse, snoozing cat, dreaming child, cozy bed. I think those are words that, some of those are like descriptive words that kids might not have heard before. And I think that because it's so repetitive, it can teach kids to begin using these words in their own vocabulary. And it has a clear sequence to it. The order doesn't switch, it stays the same through the entire story, and I think it's very good for kids who are learning how to read because they can catch on to the patterns. I think the weaknesses in the book could also be how repetitive it is. It could be a little bit boring if it's if you're reading this to a kiddo who already does know how to read. But because this is a book mostly for like pre-readers or kiddos who are just learning how to read, I think the repetitiveness is more of a strength than a weakness. And the only other weakness is that there really is no character development, but everyone is sleeping. So what can you do, you know? But if you were to use this in a classroom, I think the best way to use it in a classroom would be to teach about illustrations, to teach kids to pay close attention to the illustrations. If you were to use this during like a story time, maybe you could read it to them once and then read it to them again and say, this time pay attention to the pictures and look at what's happening in the pictures, because like I said, all of the characters are present on the very first page that it shows the inside of the house. So on page 3 you can already see all of the characters, and when you read it the second time through, you can ask the kiddos, okay, where do you think, like, where do you see the dog? Where do you see the cat? And it could be a really good way to teach kids about paying attention to the pictures. I think you could also use this to practice story sequencing and to teach kids about first, then, next, finally, last, descriptive words like that, to put things in order. I think also you could use it to teach about opposites. Like some people say, oh, the opposite of a dog is a cat. The opposite of the old is young. The opposite of sleeping is awake. You could use it to teach something like that. Or you could use it to teach counting. You could have them count the characters. How many characters do you see? How many characters do you see now when you read it the second time through? Or I think if your kiddos have like a nap time in a classroom, this could just be used as like a cute little story to lead them into their nap time. But if you were to use it for an activity, you could use any of the ones that I had said before. But I think that this is a very fun, simple, silly book to read to young readers. I did read it to one of my clients, and she thought it was hilarious. So it was 5-year-old approved.